Let's keep things rolling here on Radio Row with one of our favorite guests, someone I've talked to a ton, and you got to check out his work at PFF.com, Sam Monson of Pro Football Focus. Sam, I appreciate the time. You're in Cincinnati, so certainly familiar with the Bengals, and you've seen firsthand what this offensive line can do and can't do. How are they going to block Aaron Donald?
Well, judging from the playoffs so far, they're probably not. I mean, look, Jeffrey Simmons took this offensive line to town. Chris Jones did it again the week later. It's been like a sort of sequential run up the rankings for interior defenders. Jeffrey Simmons is a really good lineman, probably maybe better than Chris Jones this season. Chris Jones, I think, has been better overall the last few years, but Aaron Donald is the king at that position. He is the best in the NFL. He might be the best to ever do it, and that's what they're tasked with. They've got bad right guard situation. The right tackle situation isn't great. Aaron Donald has been unstoppable against good players. I don't know that they're going to have any shot of slowing him down. And it isn't just Aaron Donald. That's the scary thing, because Von Miller has been on a tear. He's been the best graded defender in the playoffs so far. He's starting to look like old Von Miller. And when they made that move in the first place, we were saying, this is the best edge rusher that's ever been paired with Aaron Donald. He's never had a guy like that outside of him with the Rams. He's turned average-looking edge rushers into really good players just because of the volume of pressure he creates. So all of a sudden, you've got like one of the best kind of tandems in the league, and you've got a substandard right side of the offensive line trying to block them. I don't think you're going to fix that with, chip blocks or turning the line that way. You need to start planning to get the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands quickly, because he's not going to have time.
Is that it? Is it the quick game?
Yeah.
Is it screens? Is it just 1 second and that's it? You better have the ball out?
It's got to be that stuff. It's going to be a lot of quick passing. The screens, I think, are going to be important. It's got to be all those things that teams do to try and mitigate that interior pressure, because I don't think they're going to be able to hold the ball long.
Make sure you follow Sam on Twitter at PFF_Sam. And the thing that I think Burrow did really well against Chris Jones, not as much against the Titans, his pocket presence, his ability to make plays. Not that he didn't against the Titans, but I think they confused him a little bit, and he was seeing the field a bit better. Is that possible? Could we see the magician Burrow, where he's able to get away and make those plays that we saw in the AFC title game?
I mean, that's the great equalizer with all this stuff, right? Is that the pressure that the Bengals have been giving up all throughout the playoffs. The Raiders had him under pressure like 36% of the time, and it just didn't matter. That's the thing, right? If Burrow plays as well as he's been playing, it might not matter. Like, he's good enough right now, and he's making enough big plays that he can negate all of the pressure and all of the bad plays that are happening. You win a game against Tennessee, getting sacked 9 times. It's never happened before. You win a game against the Raiders, get pressured 36% of the time. You are able to escape those Chris Jones plays where he's got him in the grasp like a couple of times, can't get him down. Burrow is the great equalizer. Aaron Donald can be in the backfield half the time, but if Joe Burrow is able to get out of those plays or make something miraculous happen or get the ball up to Jamar Chase, a couple of those plays can offset all of that negative. So if Burrow continues playing the way he is, it might be enough to offset everything bad that's going to happen on the offensive line, but that doesn't tend to happen long term. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can go on a run, and look, if he does it again, this is like it's an Eli Manning 2011 season, right, where the 2011 Giants offensive line was garbage, and Eli Manning had one of the best kind of sustained runs of play under pressure of any quarterback we've ever seen. If Burrow gets it done one more game, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. But equally, that's a tightrope he's been walking for a while now, and it only takes one misstep to come falling off it.
I want to ask you about the Rams offense versus the Bengals defense, but I think when you talk about the Bengals offense and Burrow making those plays, you have to talk about the receivers, because that could be the edge where they have the advantage, even though Jalen Ramsey is on that side. How do you view that secondary and how they could play that trio?
Yeah, I don't think they'll use Jalen Ramsey to track Jamar Chase, to put him on one-on-one and move him around. They don't tend to do that anyway, and when they do, it's because you're dealing with a team that has like one star receiver and nobody else. The great thing about the Bengals receiver core is now T. Higgins is the number 2. Tyler Boyd is there as well. They've got places to go other than Jamar Chase. He makes everybody better in that regard. So I doubt they'll put Jalen Ramsey on him one-on-one. They'll try and do it schematically, right? They'll try and disguise the coverages and maybe bracket him and roll safeties in that direction, that kind of thing. But that's going to give you windows, right? It's going to give you shots to Jamar Chase. And a lot of the plays that Burrow has made this year, they've been good reads, they've been great throws, but there've also been some throws in there as well where it's like, let's just give Jamar Chase a chance, right? Like that. They've got that kind of connection, and sometimes you need to do that. You need to put the ball in the air and just say, there's a pretty good chance my receiver wins this, right? We're just going to give him a shot, and maybe I'll get burned, but if I don't, it's a big play. And they might need a couple of those in this game with Aaron Donald and all the things that the Rams defense can do. There might be a few plays in there where Burrow has to just chuck it up and hope Jamar Chase makes a play.
Matt Stafford on the other side of things, certainly not afraid to chuck it up and try to let his receivers make plays. How do you view specifically the Rams skill players and Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. now in the fold, Van Jefferson, versus the secondary that has played pretty well in the postseason?
Yeah, well, Cooper Kupp is really interesting because most elite number one wide receivers, they play that X position where they're out wide, they're on the line of scrimmage, you can jam them and try and disrupt their release and all those kinds of things. The Rams, they deploy Cooper Kupp inside most of the time. He's a slot receiver, essentially, primarily, and that makes it very, very difficult to take him out of the game, either with shadowing, from a number one corner, making sure your number one guy goes with him, because most guys that shadow don't follow him in the slot. So you're just not going to do that most of the time. And two, you can't jam him with the line. It's very difficult to kind of make sure that guy doesn't have a free release, and they're really good at scheming Cooper Kupp open and just making sure that you cannot do the normal things you do to mitigate the damage that a number one wide receiver does. And we've seen that all throughout the playoffs, that they've been able, even in their sort of gotta have it plays, third and long, late in the game where we've just given up a bad play, heave it downfield to Cooper Kupp, they're able to scheme him one-on-one with a safety, or they're able to get him
against Tampa.
Yeah,
the game
and a two-way go against safeties, and it's really hard to stop putting Cooper Kupp in advantageous positions if you're the defense, and that's why they can keep going to him. And as long as they keep doing that, I think they're going to have production. And if somehow the Bengals figure out a way, an answer to that riddle, that's going to give OBJ chances, right? One-on-one opportunities on the outside, and he's showing, in recent weeks that he's still capable of winning those.
Yeah, we said that on the show. Like, despite Eli Apple and how well he's played in his resurgence, it's Odell Beckham Jr. versus Eli Apple. You feel good if you're Odell in that situation.
Absolutely,
if that's the matchup. One more, and we've talked a lot about the trenches this week, but how do you view this Rams offensive line and a familiar friend in Andrew Whitworth versus Trey Hendrickson, who I think has exceeded a lot of people's expectations, and that Bengals defensive line?
Yeah, the Rams offensive line has been really good this year, and in particular in pass blocking. Andrew Whitworth has still been one of the best pass blocking offensive tackles in the league, which is insane, really, given his age. Like, he's
Brady-esque.
It really is. Like, okay, he's a few years younger than Brady. On the other hand, he's playing offensive tackle, right? And he has to get hit in the face every single time he plays, snap. Whereas Brady can go most of the game without getting touched, right? So there is a difference there. And you can see, like, there is evidence that Whitworth isn't quite the player he was before. Like, when he loses, there's a few bad reps in there this year, and he's given up 5 or 6 sacks, something like that in the year, which is a big number for him. And you can see him kind of, he gives up a play, gets beaten for a sack, and he's mad with himself, right? But that's kind of where, like, the body's just not quite doing what the mind wants it to do anymore. But overall, he's still one of the best left tackles in the NFL, and probably has a pretty good shot of shutting down Trey Hendrickson. But it's one of those things where, because when Whitworth's losing now, it's quick or it's an ugly rep. If Hendrickson can get a couple of those, if he can win twice in the game, that might be it, right? If he can time those up against the Chiefs, he was making those big plays on third down, and that's when they got to Patrick Mahomes and stopped those drives. If he can get a couple of sacks against Whitworth on third down in this game, that could be game-changing, even if he is limited to just those 2 sacks and nothing else in the rest of the game.
He's Sam Monson, Pro Football Focus. Make sure you check out all of his work there at PFF_Sam on Twitter. And podcast, what else do you got? Plug everything that you got coming everybody's way this week.
Yeah, the podcast, we're now into firm kind of off-season territory, free agency, the draft. PFF NFL podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
This is the latest we've talked about football. It's weird. We're usually doing mock drafts every Monday and stuff, so we're
right.
talking about the game. So I appreciate the time, Sam.
No problem.